translate those standards into lessons is unparalleled. The capacity of DataWorks to translate curriculum standards down to what the teacher has to teach at the classroom level is an extraordinary aspect of the value that DataWorks is giving us. I'm particularly taken with the work they've done on getting us to understand the importance of each lesson. John and Sylvia say it's about school reform at the lesson level. Get the lesson right and we'll eventually get the whole school right. And their book is subtitled with the very message that I think is so powerful about their approach. It's about well-crafted lessons that are powerfully delivered. And so it's just been a complete advantage and boon for us that John and Sylvia have partnered with Good to Great Schools Australia. We are the preferred partner of their organisation here in Australia. They are well known beyond our work, and I think the schools in Western Australia that are going to use EDI, you've really got a front row seat in this opportunity. And I want to thank Sylvia and John for partnering with us. Can I just indulge in this whole question of that original debate that we were concerned with between the phonics and whole language crowd. The way I think about that debate is, and why it has become so ideological and so therefore destructive for children. I actually think the way I think about it, and even friends amongst us might vigorously dispute my way of thinking about that debate. But I actually think that there's a kind of dialectical relationship between those two sides of the debate. There's a kind of unity of opposites is one way to understand the relationship between direct instruction and inquiry. They're not kind of one's right and one's wrong. They're kind of unified. And so that unity of the opposites, the kind of yin and yang between explicit learning or explicit teaching and implicit learning, between direct instruction and indirect learning, between teaching and inquiry and discovery, between school education and kind of natural social construction. There's a kind of unity in the opposites. Both are, humans do learn through social construction. We do learn implicitly. Siegfried Engelmann, in Theory of Instruction, his starting point for understanding how humans learn is that children are logical beings. Babies are logical. The way humans learn is completely logical. Cognitive scientists once called it the computational baby. It is in the nature of humans that we start making logical calculations. We drop the glass and we learn about gravity. We learn the rule in relation to the blue sea and the blue smoke and the blue car and the blue pen. Even before we know the word blue, we learn the rule blue. Children are logically learning a whole lot of rules through life from the very beginning. That's the way Siegfried explains it in Theory of Instruction. The nature of human being is to identify similarities between qualities and then at some stage identifying differences between all those things that are the same, all of the blues, and the line that separates the blue from green. And I had a meeting before Christmas with some executives from Apple Australia in Sydney, and I'm doing the big pitch to them. And of course, they're into creativity and inquiry and discovery, yeah? As you would be. But I caused them to stall in their assumptions about that when I said, it's like if you had a glass apple in a big block of ice. We know that there is an apple in the middle of this block of ice. Now, how do we go about teaching the child about the apple? Do we give them a chisel to work it out themselves and to discover the apple? Do we give them a Bunsen burner to melt the, How is it that they learn about the apple? Learn the knowledge of the apple that's trapped in this block of ice and they can't see it. Well, as I understand it, direct instruction is about explicitly teaching the child about the shape of that apple at the core of that block of ice and going straight to the business of telling them what it looks like, what size it is, and where you will find it. Rather than arming them with a chisel to work it out themselves and to discover the shape of it. And I see that school education is about teaching because we know that if we expose kids to a whole lot of examples, they're going to learn the rule. Siegfried's construction of his direct instruction program is about exposing children to examples so that they learn the rule. The blue car, the blue smoke, the blue pen, the blue carpet. The rule is blue. And then when the blue alien comes out of nowhere, completely unconceived, the child might not know anything about that unknown example, but he knows the rule blue. And of course, and direct instruction is a very carefully, scientifically worked out progression of exposing children to examples, getting them to learn the rules, and then getting them to apply the schools to further generalizations. It is not rote learning. It's about exposing. If it was rote learning, you'd have to learn all examples. Rather, it's about exposing kids to examples so they learn the rule and then they can generalize to completely novel examples, completely unknown examples. And that logical process, at its higher levels, includes patterns and other forms of higher level logic. And the children's capacity to do that is developed from the very beginning through a logical process. So what I have to say to the whole language people is that, school education is about imparting to the kids the rules that we actually know so that we can get to the frontiers of what they're capable of doing as quickly and efficiently as possible. There's a lot of creativity and critique and further generalization beyond the frontiers of our direct instruction programs and elementary schooling and secondary schooling. There's a lot of frontier out there, and why we should bog the process down in getting kids to undertake discovery learning and so on, and inquiry-based learning, when explicit and direct instruction can teach you very straight up what those rules are and enable you to then generalize them, is confounding. And rather than seeing the explicit and implicit learning as kind of a unified whole, and understanding why is it that school education, deliberate formal school education, is about direct teaching. It is in the nature of teaching that the teacher is versed in the examples that she wants to provide to the child and the learning that she wants to ensue when she does that. So, unfortunately, this whole debate is across the Western world, not just in Australia, a highly ideological debate that ultimately the most disadvantaged kids suffer from. Because this ideological debate doesn't really damage advantaged kids. It most damages the prospects of those kids who desperately need to be able to read and succeed. And it distresses me that the people who are most concerned for the welfare of disadvantaged children, unfortunately, tend to champion the educational approaches that could not be more kind of deleterious to their prospects than the whole language. The final thing I want to say is that the teachers here tonight, I salute you for your profession. The great Samuel Johnson once said that he was embarrassed that he'd never been a soldier. And most people, he said, feel a sense of embarrassment that this is the 17th century, by the way, but I kind of understand very well when Samuel Johnson says that there's a certain sense of embarrassment for those of us who are not soldiers. But my sense of embarrassment is that I'm not a teacher. I just think it's the most noble profession. It's people who dedicate their lives to teaching. You're engaged in the most precious business, I think. I'm a great admirer of teachers. I've never had more